it took me a long time to grow up and have a sense of myself as a writer and as a filmmaker. When I finally broke through, my films in some sense are a response to much that is out there in the media and television and so forth, but it's approached in a way that's very different from what we see in popular culture.
Todd, I mean, how do you put a story together? I mean, is there an audience to consider? You don't have a media plan to consider, like James says. I mean, where do your stories come from?
I just sit at home with a pen and paper, and I start from there. The audience that I have to please first and foremost always is myself. And in some sense, I think it even applies, I would imagine, to a successful advertising campaign. You have to, in some sense, fall in love with the story that you're telling, the point of view that you have to convey. And if you don't embrace it, if you don't fully engage on that level, I don't think it'll be very convincing or successful for others.
You've been quoted very recently as saying that your films are not for everyone, and especially not for those people who like them.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
It came after an experience. Years ago, I was at a film festival in Telluride, and my film Happiness had just played there. And the film deals with a lot of very troubling subject matter. Afterwards, I was sitting at, a coffee shop, and a young man came up to me, and he was all very enthusiastic and excited, and said how much he loved the film, and he just thought it was hilarious when that kid got raped. And then I knew I was in trouble.
Right, yes, that's a very, very deep place to be in.
Because the film does evoke oftentimes a certain amount of laughter, but laughter is not this monolithic kind of force. There are all kinds of meanings and quality and character to laughter. It's not like you screen a film and it gets a big laugh, so keep it. And it doesn't mean if there's a quiet moment that it's a bad thing.
But do you see yourself more as a crusader for the sort of the dark corners of society? I mean, is that your mission?
I would never call myself a crusader.
You're not dressed like one, I have to
say.
say.
Like the word, but you try to recognize certain truths that aren't being expressed in the world of that you feel you have something to say. And hope that there are others who, like yourself, will be moved by the same things that move you.
Yeah.
But I've never had it as my ambition to make films that are massively appealing. I've always been grateful that there's been any audience. But I think as a filmmaker, and I imagine it applies to advertising as well, on some level when you are thinking of the right kind of story, yes, a point of view is imperative, but also on some level there's an element of fear, I think, that has to come into play. The fear, and to recognize that if you are in fact a little bit afraid, that something makes you a little bit nervous, that may actually be a good thing. A sign of that you're onto something, because it forces you to question, why am I afraid of making this statement? Why am I afraid to just explore this subject matter? And it also reflects that, therefore, it is not, in fact, something that is discussed or approached in this way. And so a little bit of fear. Look, you can have no courage without fear. And I think that's what is also needed in order for a story to break through. But it's about pushing it a little bit further so that it opens eyes and ears a little bit more.